I didn't steal the money. But when I walked into that living room and saw the way they looked at me, my brother, my mother, even my auntie who used to braid my hair as a kid, I knew the verdict was already in. They'd made their decision. And it wasn't about what was true. It was about what was easy. Because I had a past. The kind you can point to when things go missing. I used to be the problem, the mess, the addict. So when thousands disappeared from my father's estate, they didn't hesitate. They didn't ask questions. They framed me. To protect him. And the part that still makes my stomach turn? My mother helped. Before we dive into the story, we'll love to thank you for your continued support to this channel. If you enjoy this story and stories like this, kindly subscribe and hit on the notification button so you don't miss any of our stories. We will love to hear from you. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments section. We'll love to give you a shout out in our next video. Now let's begin. The call came just before sunrise. Unknown number. Buzzing on the nightstand like it had something urgent to say. I let it ring once, twice, and picked it up on the third, rubbing the sleep from my eyes like it would somehow change what I heard next. Mr. Kwame, I'm sorry to inform you. Your father passed late last night. I didn't say anything. I just listened to the hum on the line. We'll need to meet to discuss the will. As executor, there are things you'll need to handle. My breath caught. Executor? I hadn't spoken to my father in over a year. Not since that brittle Christmas dinner when he gave my brother a new watch and handed me a polite handshake like I was a guest in his house. But now, I was the one he chose to handle his legacy. I sat there, phone in hand, heart racing, not with grief, but something more dangerous. Hope. The old me wouldn't have been anyone's first choice. I was the chaos in the family photo. Rehab twice. A record I still tried to hide. Missed birthdays, missed funerals, missed everything. I spent years dragging myself through the dark just to stand upright again. But maybe this was it. Maybe this was my moment. I packed one bag, essentials only. A clean button-down, a folder with my sobriety coin tucked inside, and the envelope with my last rent check. I hadn't told anyone I was coming. I didn't know if anyone would care. The drive back to Tima was silent, the kind of silence that gnaws at your skin. I didn't play music. I didn't call anyone. I just kept replaying the word executor in my head, like maybe if I said it enough, it would sound real. When I pulled into the driveway of my mother's house, it was like stepping into an old bruise. Same peeling paint. Same overgrown bush by the gate that Dad never wanted trimmed. I stood there for a moment, letting the weight of it press down. My mom opened the door. She didn't hug me, just nodded, moved aside. He left a lot to deal with, she said. At the lawyer's office, the others were already seated. My brother, yawning like he had somewhere better to be. My two cousins, Iniyama. They all looked up when I entered, like I'd wandered into the wrong room. But then the lawyer opened the envelope and cleared his throat. In accordance with Mr. Joseph Kwame's final wishes, he has named his eldest son, Kojo Kwame, as executor of his estate. The silence in the room was immediate. Thick. Not one of them clapped. My brother leaned back in his chair, lips pressed into a thin, bitter line. My mother didn't say a word. I signed the documents with a steady hand, pretending not to notice the sideways glances. Pretending I didn't hear the unspoken question in their heads. Why him? But as I stepped out into the bright heat of the afternoon, the will in my hands and sweat clinging to my shirt, I felt something rare. Something I hadn't allowed myself in years. I felt seen. I moved back into the house 3 days after the funeral. The family agreed it made the most sense, since I was handling the estate, and the house hadn't been officially passed down yet. No one said it out loud, but the truth hung in the air like smoke. No one wanted to be there. No one wanted the mess. At first, I tried to be invisible. I made breakfast early, cleaned up after myself, took calls outside. I treated the house like a museum where I didn't belong. But the silence wasn't neutral, it had weight. The kind that presses into your shoulders until you feel smaller just walking down the hallway. My mother was cold, but polite. My brother, Kwesi, avoided me like it was a sport. We hadn't shared a room since we were kids, but we might as well have been strangers. He came and went in short, clipped bursts, keys jangling like a warning bell. New watch, new shoes. A new truck he didn't have last time I saw him. I noticed. I didn't ask. I spent hours combing through Dad's records, bank accounts, property documents, investment portfolios that were half-finished and riddled with errors. It was a mess. I created spreadsheets. I opened a new estate account. I thought, if I do this right, maybe they'll finally believe I've changed. That was the trap. That old part of me still wanted to earn my place. The first withdrawal was subtle. 1,000 gone. I told myself I must have misread. The second was 5,000 Ghanaian cedis. That one I couldn't ignore. I asked my mother, gently, at breakfast, "Did you take anything from Dad's estate account?" She looked up from her tea like I'd slapped her. Why would I do that? I backed off, just trying to keep the books clean. She didn't answer, just stared at her cup and said, "Your father would have handled things differently." That night, I checked the logs again. 2 more transactions had cleared. One of them was marked as a wire transfer. I clicked the ID. It had been done under my name. I sat there in the dark kitchen, screen glowing blue in the silence. My heart was beating too fast. My palms were slick with sweat. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was a mix-up with the bank. But somewhere deep in my chest, something older than logic stirred. They're testing you. Or they're setting you up. I closed the laptop, sat back in the hard chair, and stared at the ceiling like it held answers. I didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of the end. The family meeting was called on a Sunday. No explanation, no warning, just a message from Kwesi in the family group chat. "Let's meet at Ma's at 4 p.m. Need to talk about some estate stuff." Something in the way he worded it felt off. Too vague. Too controlled. But I told myself I was being paranoid. That was the thing about clawing your way out of rock bottom. You never fully stop wondering if you're slipping again. When I walked in, everyone was already seated. My mother in her usual chair, arms crossed. Kwesi leaned back on the couch, legs spread wide like he was holding court. My cousin Michael stood by the window. Iniama had her hands folded on her lap, eyes cast down. No one smiled. No one said hello. "Kojo," my mother said. "Sit down." I stayed standing. What's going on? Kwesi sighed like I was making things harder than they needed to be. "There's been a serious issue with the estate funds," he said. "Money's missing." My stomach dropped. But I stayed calm. "Yeah, I noticed some irregular withdrawals. I've been looking into it." Kwesi raised his eyebrows. "So you admit you knew about it?" I said I noticed something wrong, I said, slowly. "I didn't take anything." He exchanged a glance with my mother. "Kojo," she said, and her voice dropped into that tone she used when I was 17 and wrecking her car. "We found multiple transactions under your name. Transfers. ATM withdrawals. You're the only one with account access." I didn't. My mouth dried. I swallowed. "I didn't make those." "We all know your history," Iniama said quietly. It felt like the floor had cracked. Kwesi leaned forward now, voice low and steady. "I saw you on the computer that week. You were stressed. You were drinking again, weren't you?" "I wasn't." I shook my head. "No, I'm sober." "Relapses happen," my mother said, softer now, like she was pitying me. "It doesn't mean you're a bad person. But we can't ignore this." A sharp ringing filled my ears. My skin felt hot. I looked around the room, desperate for someone to stand up for me. To say, "Wait, let's see the evidence. Let's give him a chance." But no one did. They weren't just suspicious. They'd already decided. I took one step back. Then another. My voice was flat. "You think I stole from Dad? That I relapsed? That I lied to all of you?" No one corrected me. "All right," I said. "If that's what you believe, then there's nothing left to say." I walked out of that living room with my spine straight, my face stone. I didn't cry until I got to the car. The next morning, I didn't speak to anyone. I left the house before sunrise, walked to the local cafe with free Wi-Fi, and set up camp in the corner. Laptop open. Coffee cold before I drank it. I wasn't going to scream or argue. I'd done enough of that in my life. This time, I'd show them, with the kind of evidence they couldn't ignore. I opened the estate banking portal and downloaded every statement from the last 60 days. I created a spreadsheet, color-coded every transaction. One by one, I reviewed them. 1,000 Ghanaian cedis here, 5,000 Ghanaian cedis there, 20,000 Ghanaian cedis flagged as vehicle reimbursement. A week later, another 12,000 Ghanaian cedis. Home improvement, repair. I paused. That week, Kwesi had rolled into the driveway in a charcoal gray Toyota Hilux. The day after that, I saw two men fixing the gate at his house. I'd helped carry the cement. My fingers started shaking. I pulled up the digital receipts attached to the wire transfers. The signature on the largest transaction wasn't mine. It was close, but I knew my hand. Someone had forged it. I checked the login history for the bank account. There were 2 logins from a device I didn't recognize, same day the big withdrawal happened. And the IP address? My mother's house. I went deeper, downloaded metadata, cross-checked emails. It was all there. My brother had accessed the account from my mother's Wi-Fi, made the transfers, falsified the notes. And my mother? One transaction had her initials, approved by JK. That was her signature, used on every PDA slip growing up. The initials that meant, this is authorized. This is mine too. I stared at the screen, the documents lined up like an accusation. This wasn't suspicion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a setup. They used my past like a weapon, betting on the fact that no one would believe the reformed addict. Because what's easier, confronting your golden son, or letting the broken one take the fall? I closed the laptop, suddenly aware of the noise around me, the hum of machines, the clatter of spoons on mugs. The world kept spinning. No one saw the floor give out beneath my feet. They'd always seen me as disposable. I just never thought they'd plan it. I whispered it into my cup, so quiet I could barely hear it myself. They knew. They chose him. I didn't yell. I didn't show up at the house with the printed receipts, waving them in anyone's face. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. I'd done that dance before, proving, explaining, begging for belief. This time, I didn't need them to understand. I just needed the truth to exist. So I made a decision. I filed a quiet report with the estate lawyer, sent over copies of the documents, bank statements, login records, forged signatures. I didn't add a note, just the facts. I let them do their job. Then I opened my phone. I scrolled to the family group chat. Read the last few messages, photos from the funeral, Annie Amma asking about food, Kwesi dropping a heart emoji under a meme. I hovered over the settings. Leave group. Are you sure you want to leave this conversation? I tapped yes. Then I blocked every number, one by one. Kwesi. My mother. My cousins. I paused on my mother's name. Thumb hovered. My chest felt tight, but I pressed it. Block contact. It was like closing the lid on a coffin. That evening, I packed a bag. Not the small one I brought when I first came this time. I didn't plan on coming back. I took my father's old watch. A black and white photo of us fishing when I was 7. A folder with the estate paperwork. I left everything else, childhood trophies, clothes, even the recovery coin I once thought proved something to someone. I didn't need proof anymore. I drove for hours that night, past streetlights and memories and all the quiet ghosts of who I thought I had to be. I stopped at a rest station around midnight, stepped out into the cool night air, and let it hit me. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Just done. The new apartment was nothing special. White walls, cracked tiles, and a view of a parking lot with one flickering street lamp. But it was mine. No voices behind the walls. No one watching me, waiting for me to slip. No whispers of he'll mess it up again. Just space. Just silence. I got a job at a little car repair shop outside the city. Honest work. Oil-stained hands, early mornings, tired muscles. It wasn't glamorous, but it grounded me. On weekends, I started running. At first, just a block or two before my knees gave out. Then longer. By month 3, I could run to the beach. I'd sit on the sand with a warm drink, watching the tide pull everything away and bring it back different. I started therapy too, a government clinic. The woman's office smelled like dust and peppermint. The first few sessions, I didn't talk much. I just sat there and breathed. But one afternoon, I said it out loud for the first time. They made me the villain so they didn't have to see the truth. She didn't argue. She just nodded, and something inside me loosened. One night, a text came from an unknown number. Just, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. A few minutes later, it rang. Same number. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't listen to the message. I just sat there, staring at the wall. The dog I'd rescued, Kofi, a wild little thing with patchy fur, climbed into my lap. I deleted the message, blocked the number. Then I exhaled. It wasn't dramatic. There was no grand speech, no final confrontation. Just me, choosing peace over performance. They'll probably tell the story differently. Say I ran. Say I relapsed. Say I couldn't face my mistakes. But that's fine. I don't need to be the hero in their story anymore. I'm writing my own now. Would you like this formatted into a downloadable ebook or prepared for publishing/serial release? Have you ever been cast as the villain in someone else's story, just to make their version easier to live with? If this story hit something deep inside you, you're not alone. Share this with someone who's been blamed for things they didn't do. Pass it on to the ones who've had to walk away to save themselves. Or leave a comment and tell your story. Your truth deserves to be heard too. Because healing doesn't start with revenge. It starts when you finally say, "I'm not angry. I'm just done."